Good afternoon. Let me start our second discussion platform of the Ukrainian Women's Congress, which is focused on men and women in the pandemic context. The question is how to meet the needs and create a safe living environment. Let me start this panel with quite a sad words, because usually our Congress is about energy, is about people and positivity. But today, it is a bit different. Today we'll be talking online because for our country, for all of us, safety, security and health of our people, of our audience is above all. That is why we will start talking about responsibility. A responsibility of our state, of our business and NGOs. My name is Olesa Zhulinska. I am Communications and Public Affairs Director at Coca-Cola Ukraine. First of all, let me present our speakers today. Olga Stefanishina, Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration of Ukraine, Yulia Klemenko, an MP of Ukraine, Katerina Pavlyuchenko, Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, Olga Rudneva, Director of the Elena Pinchuk Foundation. Later, we will be joined by Natalia Yemchenko, Director of Public Relations and Communications at SCM Holding. Today, we also have the opportunity to listen to representatives of international institutions. And first of all, I would like to give word to Randy Ali, representative of USAID. Let's listen to his welcome speech. Moreover, we will give the final word to Dafina Gercheva, UNDP resident representative in Ukraine. She will join us later after the discussion. The impact of pandemic in Ukraine and all over the world is huge. And of course, we see that the US has suffered the most. So let's get back to our first representative of international organization, Randy Ali, representative of USAID.
It is a privilege to address this dynamic and diverse group of professionals and to be part of the first online Ukrainian Women's Congress. Today's event presents a unique opportunity to look at the COVID-19 pandemic from a gender perspective. Ongoing scientific, cross-disciplinary studies conducted by partners at UN Women and UNICEF are showing that the impacts of COVID-19 are not gender neutral. Women and men are affected differently by the disease, its long-term health implications, and its broader social and economic consequences. For example, like in many other countries, unemployment levels in the US have reached historic heights. In this respect, women have been harder hit than men, suffering job losses more often, according to a Brookings Institution study. I suspect this unfortunate trend is similar in Ukraine. The current gender pay gap makes it even more difficult for women to cope with unexpected economic burdens. In the United States, on average, women earn 85% of what men earn for doing the same job. And as the economy reopens while schools and childcare centers remain closed, it is women who are disproportionately staying home with children. Yes, the United States has domestic challenges, but the US government and USAID remain steadfast in their support for other countries also impacted by COVID-19, including Ukraine. USAID has provided over $15 million in new funding to help Ukraine recover from the effects of the pandemic. We have also redirected $10 million in existing funding to specifically address the COVID crisis through a broad range of programs across our health, humanitarian assistance, democracy and governance, and economic growth programs. To help mitigate the impact of COVID, we are providing community-level economic support, strengthening local services, increasing the resilience of small and medium enterprises to the pandemic's economic consequences. Let me give you a few concrete examples to illustrate how USAID has shifted its focus to help ease the burden of the pandemic amongst Ukrainians, which includes support for women. We are partnering with the Ukrainian Women's Fund on workforce development centers to provide online training for women to improve their entrepreneurial skills. We are helping numerous smallholder farms and small and medium-sized enterprises in eastern Ukraine, including women entrepreneurs, to find new markets, increase their online marketing, and improve their online logistics. We are also supporting the Women's Democracy Network to conduct online workshops for more than 100 women from across Ukraine who will run for elected office this fall. And we are partnering with domestic violence shelters in eastern Ukraine to help survivors of domestic violence receive the training and skills they need to find employment after leaving shelter care. One notable success story showing how local communities can respond in a positive way to promote gender equality comes from Novoukrainska Consolidated Community in Kirovograd Oblast, which is also a USAID decentralization partner. There, local councilors approved 11 million hryvnia for a program to ensure equal rights and opportunities, recognizing the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women and girls and the need for a gender-sensitive approach to decision-making as a critical component of effective recovery. This community stands as a positive example for others. In October, local elections will be held in 1,400 communities across Ukraine. This offers a unique opportunity to further extend the participation of women in political life. Women candidates tend to do better with higher turnouts, but people will only go to the polls if they feel safe. So public health efforts to lower COVID-19 infection rates are not only important for community health, but also for electing women to local office. This is just one of the reasons we are supporting civil society, media, and the healthcare system to provide accurate and timely information about how to stay safe in the COVID-19 environment. USAID is proud to support today's forum and other initiatives to increase women's participation in political, civic, and economic life as an essential element of Ukraine's democratic development and economic growth. We will continue to be your partners as you work towards ensuring diversity and inclusion. I wish you well today and in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy, representative of USAID in Ukraine. I would like to ask our viewers, you have the chance to watch our Congress online, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Rada TV channel, and you have the opportunity to ask questions. Please be active, feel free to ask your questions. And we start our discussion. First of all, I give word to Olga Stefanishina, because you are representative of the government of Ukraine. And of course, you are representative of the most important sphere, European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine. By following the news, I see that the world is evading a long economic crisis. Every country constantly analyzes such things as epidemiological situation, behavior changes among the population, whether people wear masks, and so on. Reaction of the government, how promptly it reacts, introduces different measures or easing of lockdown measures. And of course, we all follow the reactions of the citizens because our future depends on them. So what is the strategy of our government? Are we ready to confront the long-term economic crisis? How do we communicate? Because they say that this crisis will be even worse than the previous one. Thank you so much for such an excellent question about all those important issues which are closely interconnected and have an impact on each and every Ukrainian, irrespective of their gender. If we follow the actions in the parliament and government, official institutions of Ukraine from the beginning of the pandemic till the current period of fight against the pandemic, we can see clear dynamics. During the active stage of the pandemic, we introduced strict lockdown measures. But I must say that understanding that by limiting transportation and implementation of employment rights, we created even worse conditions for the economy of Ukraine. That is why the government of the parliament of Ukraine have been very active by introducing different measures and making changes to the legislation, which allowed people to be flexible in working. We also And also women, from one hand, they need to work as medical workers, as social workers. They had to carry out their family responsibilities as well, because very often Ukrainian women are responsible for caring duties in their families. That is why I would like to say that the government and the parliament of Ukraine has played an active role. After the active phase of the lockdown, they introduced so-called adaptive lockdown. We are closely following the statistics. It is very important to say that the dynamics all over Ukraine is very different. Social and economic statistics is also quite varied all over Ukraine. The employment rates are also quite different in different regions of Ukraine. The dynamics of the statistics of number of people who are sick from COVID is also different. That is why we made the decision related to regional zoning during the lockdown in Ukraine. It corresponds to the European standards. Probably in autumn we will have a second wave of the pandemic. That is why we need to get ready before schools and universities open. Starting from the next week, we will have discussions with the regions about the start of education activities. The parliament and the government of Ukraine are very active and dynamic in reacting to changes in the processes related to the pandemic. I would also like to say the huge social responsibility of the big business in Ukraine. Big Ukrainian Business Association have played a huge role in providing a platform for dialogue. It seems to me that they played a huge part in helping huge and medium enterprises to put emphasis on social responsibility and paying less attention to their economic indicators, knowing that there will be economic losses, of course, since the very first day of the pandemic. In Ukraine, we can say that there is an excellent example of joint efforts of all branches of government, parliament, social responsible business, but it doesn't diminish economic losses which Ukraine and the world will incur because of the pandemic. Ukraine is quite strong because it is a member of International Trade Organization. We are part of a huge global international trade policy. It means that this is the basis for economic stability in Ukraine. Ukraine will overcome this crisis together with the entire world. We also have new changes to the legislation which are related to taxation. They have helped our business, small and medium enterprises, to stabilize their situation. According to the statistics of the Ministry of Finances, the number of registrations of small enterprises is on the rise. But we understand that we are at the very beginning of the crisis which looms ahead. That is why our priority is to support national economic security. Our priority is to coordinate joint efforts with our international trade partners, with the European Union, with our Asian partners, American partners, because Ukraine is a country which is on its way of transforming its economy. There is no any other way than to mobilize its efforts together with huge international players. I would also like to say that since the start of the pandemic, we have carried out, together with our international partners, different investigations related to psychological state of men and women during the pandemic. Within the past 4 years, there was an increase in negative dynamics of conflicts related to domestic violence. In comparison to the previous year, the number of reports of domestic violence has increased by 28%. It needs that we need to develop a sustainable system, a system of security, a system of resilience, of national social policy. sustainability in gender policy, because during the pandemics, all the issues that are not solved, that haven't been solved under normal conditions, are worsening. I think that all of those problems that were brought up within the context of social imbalance, social inequality, were made more acute during the pandemic because women have to work and to carry out their domestic tasks. We need to triple our efforts.
In government, first of all, to coordinate our efforts to address these problems. That's why during the nearest months we plan to create a coordinational platform that will work on all these issues concerning some crisis phenomenon connected with inequality of men and women in their labor rights, salaries, maternity leave. I know that members of parliament are going to join this discussion, and I am eager to hear about their initiative. That's why the dialogue platforms are being created at the government level. We pay attention to the pressing issues, and we will try to build the system of resilience to have less negative dynamics in the crisis. Okay, that's clear. The last comment, Randall Ali told us what happens in America, USAID, other programs. Do we have any initiatives, any common plans with European Union? Could you mention? Because European Union is our strategic partner. Yes, EU is present in all of the sectors, I would say. We don't have any sector where we don't cooperate with the EU. Ms. Katerina Pavlichenko will tell you how this cooperation happens in practice. I think the crisis phenomenon that showed some painful issues to us, they will help to reallocate both financial and technical support of European Union. And we already enjoy this support, but during the active period of confinement, European Union gave Ukraine the access to the platform on counteraction COVID. This is the platform where we have a lot of discussion and coordination. Also, Ukraine is engaged in the dialogue on the vaccine development. We cannot take part financially because we have our own COVID foundation. We spend it inside the country, but we have quite the powerful pharmaceutical business. There are certain developments, and we are ready to join it to make our contribution by the means of manufacture. European Union and Ukraine demonstrated huge solidarity, and European Union allocated 190 million euro to Ukraine, and a lot of Ukrainian hospitals received personal protection items, so we enjoy a lot of support. Thank you very much. I do hope there will be questions from our audience. Please write a comment in YouTube, in Facebook. Please, we are very open to all your comments and questions. I would like to give the floor to Yulia Klimenko, the Member of Parliament, and we understand that we have parliamentary presidential republic, and Parliament plays a key role in forming legislation and informing politics. This flexibility that you demonstrate, or sometimes you fail to demonstrate, but it's very necessary. Which sectors are most affected in Ukraine, and how it influences both men and women? Well, it's not about sectors, because there are a lot of sectors that were affected deeply or not that much affected, but I would like to say that small and medium-sized business was affected the most, irrespective of sector. Why? Because they were forced to stop. And unfortunately, they didn't receive enough support from the state to be able to survive during these 3 months. So now we observe the results of this lack of support, and unfortunately, we will observe it in the end of 2020, because despite the fact that we have a lot of individual entrepreneurs registered, their number is decreasing, and we can see it. We can walk along the Kiev streets, and you will see a lot of vacant premises with the sign for rent or for sale. And the politics of parliament and government should be focused on micro business, medium and small business to support them. I'm very sorry that we have different priorities now, because the last vice prime minister is a person from a strategic and industrial sector, and they focus on large industry, but I think a small business needs a lot of support. Some people say, big businesses are the biggest taxpayers. They pay 80% of taxes. Yes, but 20% of working places are in small and medium business. And when a person has work, when a person has certain economical expectations, it's a much more stable and sustainable parameter than just tell people that today we're going to support strategic sectors. Yes, we have to take care about our strategic sectors, but the comfort and democracy is built on the medium and small business. That's why if we want to be a democratic country, we need to expand our small and medium business, because it's a buffer between the people who work as employees and large industries. So we propose to support small and medium business. And speaking of women, if we try to analyze which businesses were closed, those were micro, small business owned by women mostly. Why? Because they had to stay with their children. Yes, they had to set some priorities. Their businesses either closed or they left their businesses because they have to take care of their parents who are the risk group, to take care of their children who cannot attend school or kindergarten. And yes, that's adoptive confinement is a good step, but kindergartens and schools could have been closed earlier, and women could have opportunity to work. But what we observe now is not a very good solution. We insisted that kindergartens should be open in May, and to open schools, to give opportunity to mothers to work and to children to receive proper education. Because people who are studying now, there's a people who will go to the job market in some 10, 15 years, and this 1 year gap influences the level of the education and the employment further. This will be the people who will influence our economy in 20 years. Also, women were affected because they had to have a lot of compromises, maybe to let the opportunity to their husbands work and start to do more housework, because if there is a choice who is working in the family, in most of the cases the man would keep his job, the woman would stay home. And we really need to be very flexible working schedule for men and women, and a lot of attention to social sphere. A support of the women who will not be able to work, like individual entrepreneurs, because of so, for example, because they receive some social payment because they are taking care of deceased children or adult or parents. Now the support is 1,000 hryvnias or 2,000 hryvnias. It's not real to do something with this 4,000 hryvnias. The living minimum wage is 4,800 hryvnias. So, second initiatives, the loan programs 579 and grant programs that we have with international colleagues and partners. So, part of money should be relocated to women entrepreneurship, to give opportunity to women to receive some loans on good conditions, on grants, to enable them to continue their businesses. Now, what is the most needed for women is flexibility and understanding that gender equality will continue to grow during the crisis, and even the World Bank says that inequality will grow due to coronavirus crisis. Well, my second question was actually about this gender-sensitive grants, but you have already told us. I have a separate question, but maybe I will ask it closer till the end. I had an opportunity to speak with the communities, and I had a lot of questions on economics from women. And yes, women are always the most affected. Yes, a woman often has to choose either to have a baby or to have a business. Men rarely face this choice, but women are the biggest economic leverages. They pay on their back their loans, they create businesses. Yes, and if we see the countries who manage to fight coronavirus virus successfully without peaks and resilience, you will see that leaders of these countries are women, and they were taking decisions that were the best for their nation, for people, and it's obvious sign that we should have more women in politics and executive power in business. And then we will not have these peaks, and everything will be more sustainable and effective. Yeah, but in crisis situations, people always employ women, because woman is multitasking. But for a woman to be effective, a woman needs to feel secure, because this anxiety that women have, it's very powerful factor. And when a woman understands what she has to do when crisis comes, she is not anxious. So I would like to give floor to Katerina Pavlichenko. Could you tell us what we do? We already heard that the level of domestic violence is increasing. What kind of measures do you take? Are there any algorithm? How our Ministry of Internal Affairs is dealing with this? Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to say first of all that this Congress is a very big event every year, and I'm totally sure that even despite the online format that we have today, I'm sure it will be a big event this year. Today, we have a lot of reasons to discuss these very important questions. And you asked me about the violence. Yes, we speak not only, when we speak of domestic violence, we speak both about violence against women and men, and also very important things that domestic violence is not something specific for Ukraine only. All the countries face this challenge, and within the current conditions, this topic becomes even more relevant. That's why the Ministry of Internal Affairs and National Police of Ukraine working on this issue. We focus on this. That's why we do information campaigns. So during the confinement, we developed the safety plan for people who may be affected by domestic violence or were affected. So it was. So we had this informational campaign in houses. in blocks of flats, on our website, on other informational media. So our informational campaign are targeted at all the citizens to raise the awareness. So we want people who know what it is not to care about the situation. If they know about the situation of domestic violence of their neighbors or relatives, they should inform about it and they should take actions. It's very important. Also, we created chatbot in Telegram Messenger, and we also use it in Viber because different chats messengers are used by different age groups. So it's a demand of a modern society because we all switch to online. It's safe, yeah. And we have all the information in this chatbot, and you can easily address police or other services. And but mostly it's of informational character. Fantastic.
Chatbot is an excellent idea. I understand that all of us are representatives of the state sector, but not only state sector is responsible for the situation. Of course, business and NGOs are also responsible for that. So I would like to ask Olga Rudneva, representative of an NGO, a non-government organization, what is the role of NGOs in Ukraine? What are the achievements you have, and what problems would you like to address? Thank you. First of all, I would like to react to what I've heard. It is just great that in July we discuss these issues at this platform, but from our point of view, we should have done that much sooner. Of course, we are here in July and we want to create a platform in August, but sorry, we are a bit too late for that. There are several aspects related to psychological support, to reports, calls to the police, a spike in domestic abuse, 28%, but we don't really know, but it has increased. Probably there were more reports. I don't know why. So I would like to hear about this opportunity to call the police. I want to see this information everywhere. I want this campaign to be global, to be available in all corners of Ukraine. I'm not sure that all of Ukrainian women know about these opportunities. It seems to me that there are no enough efforts on behalf of the state. Well, I personally, I know about these initiatives, about different initiatives introduced in the police. Well, first of all, this is my reflection to what I've heard. Secondly, at the beginning of the pandemics in December, as a foundation which has been working with epidemics, we understood what would happen after we saw the situation in China. And this is when we created an online course aimed at women. This course helped them find job or get back to job after a long pause related to maternity leave or other situations. We thought that it would be useful for single mothers or for families where there is one source of income. For example, if there is a man who has a job, he loses his job due to the pandemic, and they are at the poverty level. This course has been available for many months. It was available since January. It is available to all women. This course helps them build their skills, how to behave herself during a job interview, how to get back to a job. We understand that women are mostly owners of small and medium enterprises because they have always had problems with access to resources. We all know that it is much more difficult for a woman to get a loan in a bank. That is why they don't have these big enterprises. They mostly have small and medium enterprises. Another story is related to the fact that women didn't have enough time to pay to the business during the pandemic because they had children, they had their domestic course, and they had to work from home. This is what happened. This is actually a story which is relevant to many of us here. It means that the time which she could spend carrying out her business activities, she had to spend to her children or to her household duties. That is why women's business suffered a lot. We understood that we needed two things. First, these are advices, and secondly, these are financial support. Together with Coca-Cola Foundation, we allocated 1 million hryvnias to support women's business in Ukraine. We were surprised by all those requests from women that we received. We understood that the world will change. It will be digital. Even if we get back to normal, everything will be transformed. It will be a new reality. As I've told you, we will provide those grants for digitalization of women's business. If you haven't had a website, if you haven't been present on social networks, we will provide you the money to do that. We received some incredible stories from women entrepreneurs. And we understood that when we introduced those grants, it was a bit too late because people started closing their business activities. But people said, this is our last chance. Some of those women said, well, thank you, but you're a bit too late. And 1 million hryvnias is just nothing when it comes to the needs of the women entrepreneurs in Ukraine. We would like to see financial support. As Yulia Klimenko said, we would like to get affordable loans for women. I understand that there is a crisis in the country. We don't have money in our state. We need to spend money on building and renovating our roads. So we are able to go to hospitals where we and our children can be treated. As far as I know, you are also organizing a project related to consultations, because sometimes it's not even about money. And lastly, our brain is quite specific. It was very difficult for us to adapt. Our brain couldn't understand what to do. And then when we adapted to this situation, we had to get back to work. And our brain said, wow, wow, wow. But still, we haven't got back to normal. We introduced our program on online psychological support. We had an online hotline of psychological support for women for people who stay at home. So we did all those projects, but they were not enough. Well, I don't want to say that we are cool, we managed to do everything. This is what we did. But I would like to see statistics. I want to understand what is happening to women, to business women all over Ukraine. But we have a lot of worldwide statistics, but I don't see any Ukrainian data. It seems like there is no statistics. We don't have statistics related to small and medium enterprises. The state statistics doesn't collect this data. Well, we started too late, but we have started working with the statistics in Ukraine. This is, of course, we need to see the truth. We want to understand who is providing jobs, who pays taxes. We say that the crisis demonstrated a lot of problems. Well, let us tell the truth. We didn't need any crisis to show us the truth. We all understood our problems even before. But during the crisis, we see the impact of the consequences of all those problems. We want all those small projects that we implement to serve as an example, to take over our experience. This is my dream, which never comes true because we have been trying to do that within the past 17 years. But we still believe, we still have hope, because this is a huge economic story. We hope that we will be able to take over, to give over those initiatives to the state. As non-governmental sector, we play our role, but we want to see support on behalf of the state. Well, finally we have such an active, hot discussion. Let me jump in. You started with domestic violence after my speech. Well, first of all, I would like to say that Don't interpret that of the statistics that if the statistic has risen or the cases of domestic violence has risen. If, for example, there are more calls on the hotline of police, it means that our society starts creating this zero tolerance to the problem of domestic abuse and violence. People start recognizing domestic violence and reporting those cases. So, on one hand, the statistics might be even positive because we hear more about this problem. As for the information campaign, we discussed that lockdown measures have forced us to switch to online education and online work. I would like to say that this is a huge leap forward because we learned how to adapt to this new reality. And if you don't know about those awareness campaigns, probably you were not interested because we are talking a lot about them. We tell about those problems at our website, at our resources and social networks. We publish this information in the media. We are on the radio, on TV, and we do not stop there because we understand that this is a priority for us, for our ministry, and this is a demand of our society. Well, I don't have to be interested in order to get this information. Well, thank you for not telling the time the target audience. Well, this is not a reproach to you. Actually, the media shall come to you and ask you. I know that your resources are limited.
Yes, you have to say, on TV, you have to have some video speeches. Understand that people, families were closed in one apartment, in one house for 3 months. We never had this experience, at least in my family. We've always been somewhere. We saw each other a couple of hours a day or even a week. And then we were just closed in one house. But families which had problems before, they, had more challenges because sometimes people live in a one-room apartment. They have people, one child is in school, the other child goes to kindergarten, and they have a dog, and they have a grandmother, and it's just... There should be a separate programs even to give people private space. Oh, it's about courageous to ask for help, about courageous to make the first step, because they say it's impossible to make business without being courageous. Let's go back to business. So here is Natalia. She joined us, Natalia Yemchenko. And it's a very unique panel because we have the representatives of the most important sectors that act in this world: business, NGOs, and state. So business makes a lot. Business does a lot to give jobs to people, to keep working places, to keep jobs. Wow, your enterprises are important in communities and cities and towns. So could you tell us what kind of programs you did to save working places, to save jobs, and what are you proud of? Thank you very much for your question. First of all, I would like to say that I'm both representative of business and NGO because I'm in the supervisory board of Rinat Akhmetov Foundation. So I can see it from two perspectives. First of all, I would like to say that I do believe that our country went through the first stage of confinement crisis with quite a good results, and I think everyone, state, NGOs, I have something to be proud of, and we have to tell ourselves that we did a good job. We managed this. It happened only because we united, and together, and this word together is a very philosophical word, And we often lack this feeling of being together in business, in state sector, in a non-governmental sector. And I think we have to think more about what is it to be together. The non-governmental organizations united, business supported state, a lot of projects were done together. We, as a foundation, had special projects and still have with the Ministry of Healthcare, and it's very fruitful cooperation. We work every day, we have dialogue and conversation, like how do we have to train the doctors, how do we protect them, what personal protection items do we have to give them, what equipment our hospitals need. We also cooperate with the Ministry of Digital Transformation and Information because we create digital content from small and medium business. We work with regional and administrations. Do other organizations take your programs as an example? We cooperate with them. On the 16th of March, at the meeting with the President of Ukraine, it was decided that we as big business are responsible for 2 regions, Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, Donetsk, Lugansk. So this responsibility was given to you. We agreed we will have this responsibility. Also, we have had headquarters in Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhia region, and we have figures to compare. And I would like to say that in the very beginning, Lviv region was the most mobilized and the most experienced, but very soon other regions started to build their own models, and now I can't say that there is any region which is pioneer and others just have to follow. We have experience exchange, we have competitorship, someone is doing something better, but a lot of things are being done together. So what programs for entrepreneurships do you have? Because we want to speak about business at this panel. Business plays a huge role in this case because state to do so, even when state understands what needs to be done, state needs to cooperate with business because states very often is able to do something that state is not able. They don't have this mechanism expertise because state system is not flexible. That's why I think the main role of big business in this first stage of crisis to be a mobile and flexible partner to support state, not where the state is unable, but where it is unable yet, to keep jobs, yes. First, to support state where it can collapse to be more flexible, but not forever. Not forever. Second, big business refused from benefits on tax payment because we understand we refused exemption of taxes because we understand for some territories our taxes is the only source. So we understand if we don't pay taxes 2 or 3 months, everything will be very bad in this city. We have business that cannot simply stop, like energy. And we practiced working in shifts. People were living on the stations for 3 weeks because they couldn't go home and expose themselves to risks of having COVID. And it was a very interesting case. We did a very interesting movie, interesting documentary. country, what people, mostly those were men, what they were doing, because they stayed at the station, what they did after the shift. They received some digital skills. If they were reading something, they were getting into some details, they were doing a lot of things they would never do at home. So these people, they were living at work, literally, and we had a task to keep these jobs, to keep the salaries, because we understand that big business gives money to the economy and small businesses give employment. These are two different functions, and it works only in symbiosis. If we don't have big business, service businesses will not have money, and if we don't have service businesses, people will have no jobs. We have a very interesting discussion, but I have to give the floor. We have another guest, Dafina Hercheva, UNDP resident representative in Ukraine, and she wants to welcome our Congress, and then we will come back because we have a lot of questions, and I'm sure that, yes, we have to be heard, and we need more of such congresses. So, Dafina, the floor is yours. Are we ready?
Excellencies, distinguished members of the government and parliament, dear representatives of civil society, dear colleagues and friends, I'm very pleased and honored to address you here today at the annual Ukrainian Women's Congress. At UNDP, we are excited to be with you again for this important occasion, as we have been for the past few years. This year, we are gathering online during a time of great challenge. The global COVID-19 pandemic is more than just a health issue. It is a multidimensional crisis that is intensifying socioeconomic inequalities and vulnerabilities and undermining many advances with the Sustainable Development Goals. This crisis is global and deadly. It is affecting everyone and everywhere. And women are disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, especially the poor and most vulnerable. Recently, the United Nations Development System in Ukraine conducted a comprehensive assessment of the socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 in the country. The analysis was done through the human rights and gender equality lens and highlighted the specific challenges women are facing and the barriers that prevent them from having equal access to opportunities, services including access to justice and legal aid, labor and capital markets. Let me briefly share with you some of the preliminary findings of the assessment. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by the pandemic because of their high exposure to the virus, which puts them and their families at great risk. In Ukraine, women account for 82% of the total health and social workers, compared to a 70% average worldwide. Many of these women also suffer from distress and anxiety, which can negatively impact their professional motivation while further debilitating their personal health. Only 14% of the women who participated in the online survey and who work in healthcare systems said that they were fully provided with personal protective equipment. The survey also confirmed most of these women working long hours in the healthcare services face an increased burden of unpaid care work at home. In addition, the closure of schools and daycare centers has significantly increased child care needs, which has a particularly large impact on working mothers. The crisis and the lockdown have also led to a spike in domestic violence. Reported cases have increased by 30%. This is a worrisome development that must be curbed and confronted by all of us. We must act together in solidarity. The impact of the crisis on the health of the economy is harmful. The quarantine has caused reduction in output, household spending and trade. The global value chains have been disrupted, and this will lead inevitably to steep decline of GDP. In Ukraine, like in all the other countries that have been hit by the COVID-19 emergency, the economy is taking nosedive and GDP will drop by 8.2% in 2020. More than 9% of small and medium enterprises are on the brink of bankruptcy and may close down and go out of business. Most SMEs are subject to demand, supply, and liquidity constraints. Unemployment is on the rise. More than 3 million people have been registered as unemployed since March this year. However, we believe that the number is much higher, as a large share of the economy is informal. The increase of unemployment is coupled with the upsurge of unpaid domestic care work, which is done largely by women and girls. This trend could adversely affect their independence and economic empowerment. Women are among the most vulnerable groups in times of crisis and recession, as they are often engaged in short-term, part-time or informal employment, which offers limited social and health insurance and low pensions. Honorable delegates, distinguished colleagues, it has been widely recognized that the response to the crisis should be inclusive and equitable. Our collective and targeted efforts must ensure that we recover back better and greener, and with SDGs as our compass, we can design a better future where no one is left behind. Everyone has a decisive role to play: the Parliament, the government, civil society organizations, and the private sector. The international community stands ready to support Ukraine's efforts to achieve resilience and prosperity. United Nations Development Programme, which is the operational arm of the United Nations Development System, was one of the first agencies to respond to the crisis by establishing crisis management units under the leadership of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The next phase of UNDP's COVID-19 crisis response is designed to help decision makers look beyond recovery towards 2030, making choices and managing complexity and uncertainty in 4 main areas: governance, social protection, the green economy, and digital transformation. It encompasses our role in technically leading the UN socioeconomic response. By way of concluding, let me reiterate the importance of advancing the gender equality and women's empowerment agenda, which is a powerful multiplier of development and prosperity. Dear colleagues, please allow me to wish you a very productive and animated discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Beautiful speech. We all understand that we are finding ourselves in a very difficult period and we are running out of time, although me personally, I would speak 3 or 4 hours more, and I have feeling that we have to shout about what we are doing, because we feel we have a lot of, we have not so many positive information, we have a lot of negative information. Yeah, we have a lot of different information, but some exact information that reaches people through this informational comma is not that numerous, and we have these info streams now. A lot of information, negative information is perceived much more. It reaches people faster. Yes, I would like to say that we work a lot with healthcare, and I am really impressed with the number of healthcare workers affected. The people who were diagnosed as COVID positive, 20 or 70%, those are mostly workers of healthcare system and mostly women. Yes, also people from law enforcement agencies. Yes, no one says about police. And we were impressed by the statistics, and a big part of support from business, like 300 million hryvnias, was allocated to protect doctors and medical workers, and I'm very impressed by the statistics. I didn't know about the workers of law enforcement agencies, but we have really huge statistics among doctors. Yeah, well, unfortunately, we are running out of time. We have no opportunity to discuss it further. I hope we will continue and we will have more congresses and more time. But there is one question that we do need to ask. Olga Vesnyanka asks about the convention of EU Council against the violence and domestic violence. Are there any chances that it will be rectified? Not mentioning the Istanbul Convention. We are working on this. We are speaking, like 4 years we have in this context and Congress, and we continue working about the Istanbul Convention. So are there any plans like this?
We haven't heard about such plans because we have a new head of the committee who is responsible for external communications and external policy. Unfortunately, this committee is working not in full force. I would like to hear concrete plans. As of now, there are almost no questions of external policy on the agenda of Parliament. That is why our hopes is we are hoping that the government of Ukraine will tackle that. The government is leading in this process. In my public speeches, I said more than once that the issue of domestic violence is the fight against it is our priority. We have adopted most of the documents relevant to this. We now pay a lot of attention to implementation of those documents. We are now closer than ever to ratification of the Istanbul Convention. The previous Parliament adopted legislation which is actually a step to adopt this convention. Now we are focusing on the best ways to implement this piece of legislation. I share your concerns, or concerns of the civil society. It seems to me that we also lack communication. Communication is never enough. I'm absolutely open for collaboration, for joint projects. It is very important because now we will focus our attention on a center of gender skills and knowledges. We have a lot of programs and trainings, but we are unable to cover all the country. We need to tell more. Starting from TikTok and ending with TV news, the informational field is really wide and huge. That is why we need to build our competences. We need to raise awareness. This is where the government should take ownership. For us, it's not enough. We need to submit into the Parliament a set of documents. But we have used this approach more than once, and it wasn't so successful. That is why recently we will be ready to submit this draft law into the Parliament of Ukraine. I do my best in ensuring efficient implementation of the legislation. I would like to ask Katerina to comment on that. Of course, we have problems with the courts in Ukraine and with judges who haven't learned yet how to interpret this legislation, because we have this Soviet system of mentality. It shows that the society, the court system in Ukraine is not ready to accept those legislations. So this convention is definitely important, but we need to know how to implement it in practice. Law enforcement officers already start knowing how to use this legislation. There is an opportunity for the victim of domestic abuse to feel protection and security, to understand that people care about her or him. That is why ratification of convention is very important. But unfortunately, we don't have enough time. As for your question, ratification of convention, of course, we've been discussing it for the past few years. But our legislation in 2018 has changed significantly when the law of Ukraine on combating domestic violence was adopted. There are new mandates for police, for law enforcement officers. But this question is a complex next one, because there are a lot of different units, institutions that fight these problems, such as courts, prosecutor's office, police. We need to inform our society about what is domestic abuse, how they need to react in such a situation. This is our shared responsibility. And on that note, we must wrap up our discussion. So we will continue working in this direction to raise awareness in the society and to work on new mechanism and improving old mechanism of combating this problem. Our next panel will be dedicated to effective leadership in fighting the pandemic, and it seems to me that we have demonstrated this leadership. We didn't only focus on economic, but on leadership as it is, because leadership is the most important in these times of the pandemic. This is the leadership of the state, of government, parliament, non-governmental organizations, and business. I'm sure that if there were more women in the leadership of Ukraine, we would overcome the first phase of the shock related to the pandemic more efficiently. Thank you so much. I would go on talking and talking to you. I would listen to you forever, but I need to thank our partners. Without them, this Congress wouldn't happen. NDI in Ukraine, UN Women, UNDP in Ukraine, Gender-Oriented Budgeting in Ukraine, IFAS Ukraine, Olena Pinchuk Foundation, and of course Coca-Cola in Ukraine. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank Starlight Media, our information partners, because without them this Congress wouldn't happen. Thank you so much. I hope that by the end of this year we will hold one more Congress. At least I will do my best to have more time for moderation. But of course there will be new challenges. Thank you so much. And sorry for not giving everyone enough opportunity to talk. We need more time. Thank you. Thank you.